For this video, we're going to be discussing quadratic equations and how to solve them by graphing. So first, let's talk about what a quadratic equation is. A quadratic equation is just an equation that has a degree of 2. A degree of 2 just means that its highest exponent is 2. It's an equation that has x squared in it. And the general form of a quadratic equation is shown here. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And a quadratic equation can have 1, 2, or no solutions. All right, remember back when we did linear equations, they could have 1, infinitely many, or no solutions. For a quadratic, it can have 1, 2, or no solutions. All right, so since we're talking about graphing, let's talk about what a graph looks like. The graph of a quadratic equation is what we call a parabola, and that's just this curvy U shape here. And the parabola looks like this, and it could also open downwards like this. Either way, either one of those works. All right, and let's talk about some parts of this graph. So the x-intercepts, you should know, the x-intercepts are where the line crosses the x-axis, and in a quadratic, the x-intercepts have some other names that we need to know. They're also called the roots, the zeros, and as we're about to find out, they are also the solutions to a quadratic equation. So x-intercepts, roots, zeros, solutions, they all mean the same thing. It's where the graph crosses the x-axis. Y-intercept, that's where the graph crosses the y-axis, obviously. The vertex is just either the highest or the lowest point in the quadratic. If the quadratic opens up like this, the vertex is the lowest point. And if it opens down like this, the vertex is the highest point. And the other name for a vertex is it is the maximum or minimum, depending on whether it opens up or down. And then the line of symmetry is just the vertical line that goes through the vertex, and it's called the line of symmetry because this side of the line and this side of the line mirror each other. So, just some vocabulary you need to know. So we just discussed that a parabola can open upwards or downwards, okay? And the way we figure this out is if we look at the equation, if we put it in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, if a, which is the coefficient of x squared, is positive, then your graph is going to open upward and it has a minimum, okay, because it has a lowest point. If a is negative, then the graph opens downward and it has a maximum, which is just the highest point on the graph. Okay, so we use this a here to determine whether the graph opens upwards or downwards. So we can use this graph to find the solutions and find the number of solutions. All right, so here are your 3 options you can have when graphing a quadratic equation. Okay, the graph could not touch the x-axis at all, and that's what we call having no solutions, because the solutions are where the graph crosses the x-axis. If it doesn't touch the x-axis, then it has no solutions. Okay, this is an upwards opening one that has no solutions. This would be a downwards opening parabola with no solutions. All right, it could have one solution, meaning it touches the x-axis at exactly 1 point. Okay, and if it happens to have one solution, the solution is also the vertex. So there's an upwards opening one, here's a downwards opening one that both have exactly one solution because they touch the x-axis exactly once. Or you could have 2 solutions where the graph comes down and touches the x-axis exactly twice, or looks like this and touches the x-axis exactly twice. All right, because the solutions are the same things as the x-intercepts. They're also known as the zeros. They're also known as the roots. It's an important thing to remember as we work with quadratics, that the solutions and the x-intercepts are exactly the same thing. So that being said, let's look at example 1. Example 1 says, how many solutions does this equation have, and what are they? Well, we can notice this is a downward opening parabola, so we know that a is a negative number. Okay, that's not something that matters to the problem, but it's just something you should know. A is negative because it opens downwards. All right, how many solutions does it have? Well, it crosses the x-axis once and twice, so it has 2 solutions. What are the solutions? Well, here's one of them. It's at -4, so one of the solutions is x equals -4. The other one's here at 0, so the other solution is x equals 0. And it is just that easy. All you do is find where does it cross the x-axis. There you go. That's the solution. All right, let's take a look at example 2. Example 2 says, how many solutions does this equation have, and what are they? Well, you can notice this one has a minimum, okay? This is a positive a. This opens upwards because a is positive. And its minimum right here is at 1, 3. So it's never, ever, ever going to cross the x-axis. Because of that, it has no solutions. All right, because it doesn't cross the x-axis, can't have any solutions, so we just say no solutions. All right, now, what if you are not given a graph? Because most of the time you're not going to be given a graph when you go to solve a problem like this. So let's just figure out how we're going to do that. The first step is to put the equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. For example, if you're given x squared plus 3x equals 2, you'd have to first go, okay, x squared plus 3x, subtract 2 on both sides, minus 2 equals 0. Okay? Then replace that 0 with a y. X squared plus 3x minus 2 equals y. Okay? And then now you have your equation, and you can graph it now. Next, you're going to enter this equation into the graphing calculator. We're not going to be graphing these by hand. It's easiest just to do it using the graphing calculator, so that's how you're going to do it. All right? And then once it's in the graphing calculator, you just find the zeros. So let's take a look at an example. We need to solve this by graphing. We're given x squared plus 2x equals -1. So our first step is we need to put this in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So to do that, I'm going to add 1 on both sides. I get x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 0. All right, now I'm going to take that 0 and I'm going to replace it with a y. So I get y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. So now I've got everything I need to graph this. So I'm going to get out my graphing calculator. And this graphing calculator that I've got here is basically the same graphing calculator that we use in class. It's just a newer version that I've got here on my computer to use. So I'm going to go here to where it says graph. On this calculator, it's number 5. I think on your calculators at school, it's number 3, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to go to number 5. And now I've already got a equation in there. I'm going to get rid of that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. It's already got the y equals part, so I'm just going to put in x squared plus 2x. Whoa, it's doing all sorts of crazy stuff on me. Let's not have any of that in there. Okay, let's try that one more time. X squared plus 2x plus 1. All right, so now I'm just going to hit graph. Just going to hit that button twice, and there we go. It's graphed it for me. Now, this can be kind of hard to see, so let's zoom in. And I want it to zoom in this area here. Okay, see a little bit better. We can see that this has exactly one solution because it touches the graph exactly one time. And it looks pretty much like it's going to be at -1. All right, and the nice thing is this calculator can do this for us to tell exactly what our solution is. So it looks like it's at -1. I'm going to hit F5 or G-solve, and we see this word root. Now remember I told you root was another word for x-intercept, another word for solution. So I'm going to hit that. It's going to calculate, and it's going to tell me that yes, -1 is my answer. So there we go. I've graphed this. I found the root, so I get -1 is my answer. -1 is x. Now, how can I check this? Well, I can take this -1, I can plug it in. I'm going to plug it in the original and see if it works. So I do -1 squared plus 2 times -1 equals -1. -1 squared is 1. 2 times -1 is -2, so I get 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2 does equal -1, so it works. The answer is -1. So that's how we use a graphing calculator to solve these, by graphing. Now, you will not have the graphing calculators we have at school at home. However, you'll notice that on Schoology, I have provided you a link to an online graphing calculator you can use, and you can use that for any homework that you may have. So, pretty easy to do by solving with graphing. So, your try it problem for tonight, I have given you a graphed quadratic here. This is the graph of y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. You have to do two things for your try it problem. Tell me how many solutions does this equation have, and what are those solutions?